Greetings, YouTube. I follow a feed on Instagram which talks about RPG stuff. And every couple of days, it might be every day, I'm not sure, they put up a prompt for an idea. And one of the prompts they had recently was about that you come to a village and the village folk pray to their god and their god shows up. Which got me thinking about a god that only has a single village of followers probably isn't all that powerful, because I really think that a god's power should be proportional to the number of worshippers. Um, every god would have some minimum level of power. They are divine after all. But after that point, the gods are definitely going to be ranked, not in the challenge rating of mortals, but in maybe a divine challenge rating, a DCR, so they can judge between each other who is going to be a contender and who's going to be a risk, things like that. Now, I touched on a god with a fairly tight focus not long ago, and I discussed Dern, the god of hammers. But hammers are a pretty broad portfolio, because you can have hammers be war, of course. You can have it be crafting, and not just a single type of crafting. It can cover multiple types of crafting. So that's got a lot of worships in there, and of course that's going to easily pull in humans and orcs and gnomes and dwarves. So right from the get-go, you've got a large population base all wanting to worship Dern. And if you put a little English on it, you might even pull in justice to the concepts of a hammer, the hammer of justice. So you could probably pull justice in there if you want to get three different domains: war, crafting, and justice. But a god who has only 200 worshippers, which is probably about the size of your average village, isn't going to have a lot of power. But what happens if your god's even smaller than that? It's a thorp. It's got 50 people in it. Or it's a god that was worshipped once in the past and now is only continued worship by a single family line. So there's only 12 or 13 people still worshiping this deity. What kind of power do they have left? Like I said, there'd be some minimum. There's a bottom that the gods can't go below. They're never going to be amongst the mortals as mortals. But they could very well be such low powered amongst the divinity that they travel here, they live here, because they feel uncomfortable, they feel out of place amongst in the divine realms, because they lack so much power. And some of them may be okay with this. They're immortal. They have got lots of decent perks. They pretty much can't be killed by humans under almost normal circumstances. It takes an extraordinary circumstance for a mortal to kill a divine being. That's the culmination of an epic campaign to kill a god. You can probably drive a god from a plane for a period of time, but it'd be very difficult to permanently kill a god. So what if the lesser gods just hang out? Now there's the World Tree, which is a RPG set on a giant tree, as it says in the name, the World Tree. And in that world, it's a fantasy world with some sci-fi thrown in there for flavor. The gods are real, and they walk amongst people. They interact with them directly because they want to. Like they do, like the book American Gods. The gods walk amongst people because that's what they feel like doing. So I like the idea of a small god, and maybe the player characters bump into them and don't know it. And depending on what type of god it is, can depend on whether you really want to be associated with the deity. Is it a good god? Is it a bad god? Is it a trickster god? And I saw a story recently about a woman who was a barista at the time, and someone made a statement, and then this guy in line made this very corny, absurd comment. It was a play on words, But it made a lot of people very uncomfortable. Like, why is this guy doing this? And so the barista came back with her own play on words. And he looked at her and he said, you're a very fast girl. And he smiled and he handed her a pen, and then he turned around and walked out. And the pen like shines light because it's like, identifying it's UV light, so it like tell you if something is not a real dollar bill kind of thing. And someone's like, you pleased a mad trickster god. I can guarantee you shine that light on something and it will break an enchantment, which is a wonderful concept. Oh, yes, I know. No one's ever loved you, ever, ever, ever. No, maybe the lesser gods are wandering around. Maybe they're television celebrities. Maybe they're just great poets in your fantasy campaign, entertainers. They change their appearance, move from place to place. And there's a tradition that people coming out of this particular bard college have a very similar style, and they pay homage to the first one that ever established this style of art. Of course, it's the same god, just over the last 1,000 years. Maybe they're schemers and connivers, acquiring great wealth and then just throwing it away, not because they want the wealth, because they want that process of acquiring it. It's the game that pulls them in. Then they drop it on the ground and walk away, or they give it to someone else just to see how it'll screw with their lives. And of course, then there's the evil ones. Maybe they've been serial killers down through the ages, immortal, slipping from village and town and city to city, always one jump ahead of the authorities because, well, they're a god. They don't kill because they need to kill. They're not looking for worshipers anymore. They just enjoy the process, the hunt, the execution, the blood. So what if these lesser gods are the chaos in an otherwise orderly system? And maybe it's the player character's jobs to identify them, to out them, because that spoils the fun for them. So maybe they go away for a while. Maybe it helps rein them in. Maybe they can get enough of the good ones, or at least the borderline not evil ones, to join together and help them defeat the really bad ones. So they can go back to playing their games, their schemes and plots, their seething revenge against maybe a slight that happened 12,000 years ago, caused by a culture that doesn't even exist anymore. And yet they still seek that comeuppance all over again because they're trapped in that cycle. Maybe the gods do that. Maybe the gods can't get outside their portfolio. They can't think outside or act outside. That very narrow focus is what made them gods to begin with. Maybe they're even less self-aware in some regards than we are. So let's talk about small gods. The gods of only a handful of worshippers, maybe even only one, maybe none. Some may want to come back. Some are happy with their lot. And some want to watch the world burn.